Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Truth or Demons podcast. I'm your host, Stevie, and I'm back with even more Nesper nonsense. Trust me, I didn't think it could get worse either. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, go back and at least listen to the last 15 minutes so you're all caught up on just how it can get worse from that. Before I continue, I wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much to everyone who reached out to me after last week's episode. It truly meant the world to me, and I'm honored I could do something good for the community. I love you guys so much. Okay, enough of that mushy shit or I'll cry. So, Nesper recently took to Facebook to announce their oops. Now, it was far from just an oops, but with the way they tell it on Facebook, it's nowhere near as big a deal as it actually is. So they announced they would no longer be doing a part 2 with this Joe King person, and they thanked their listeners for bringing it to their attention. But like I mentioned, they didn't say exactly why they wouldn't be doing a part 2. They said, quote, "Attention, seekers of the supernatural podcast listeners. 966 Lindley Street podcast update. Due to information brought to our attention, we will not have a follow-up episode with our previous guest. The New England Society for Psychic Research will not be providing a platform for this individual, and we apologize to anyone this may have offended. We would like to thank our listeners who reached out to us with this information and for having our backs. Thank you to all our subscribers, followers, and friends. We will still have a show this Friday at 8 p.m. as promised, where we will talk about our recent Devils on the Run tour stop in San Antonio and our upcoming stop at the Missouri State Penitentiary with our friends at Get Haunted, along with anything else that comes up." End quote. Excuse me, sirs? I don't know who is responsible for these posts on Nesper, Tony, Dan, Chris, or Wade, but whoever it is, they know damn well those were my listeners bringing it to their listeners' attention, trying to comment to at least let their listeners know, because some people were donating money to this live with Joe. But every attempt on YouTube was deleted and blocked, and then the comments were turned off altogether. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't contact Nesper directly in some way. And I'll be honest, I didn't want to give them a chance to cover their tracks on this one. My history with Nesper, and Dan specifically, shows they are not in support of me or anything I say or present. So I thought it would be better for the community if they were just exposed flat out this time. After our failed attempts on YouTube, finally we got some traction on Nesper's Facebook page and made a couple of people aware. A couple of them even reached out to me to thank me for letting them know. Thank you guys for that. But did Nesper acknowledge mine or any of my listeners' posts? Nope, not a word of thanks to us. But I'm really not surprised. I did not for 1 second expect thanks or even recognition for this. Don't worry, I'm not delusional. So now, with this Facebook post Nesper put up after finally deleting the video with Joe, after it reached 8,000 views, by the way, they turned the comments off. Yep, their post announcing their half-assed apology has the comments turned off. Wonder why that is. Maybe so no one can comment and correct them again? They're playing dumb and thanking their followers for having their backs. And I'm not just talking about me. One of my researchers was busting her butt trying to make people aware of what they were supporting. I don't get mad easy, and I'm not mad or surprised by their response, but liars can really make my blood boil. The reality of the whole matter is, if I hadn't shared this info and made it so public like I did, they would still be moving forward with this book. And then they would absolutely begin parading Joe around as their new cash cow. And I guarantee they would take him to public events, assuming he's even allowed to, or in the future would be allowed to, leave the state. He has multiple charges, one of them being failure to register. Why else would an offender fail to register except to hide who he is and what he's done? There's a reason people are made aware of sex offenders, so they can keep their children safe. And there's something else. It has been 6 months now since Tony announced Joe and his so-called story on YouTube. That's 6 months they had to look into this guy. Check his credibility. Check his history. Tony is a former cop, remember, and Chris is a current cop. 6 months for someone to speak up. 6 months for someone to say, hey, I read the book. This story doesn't sound right. I think I'll look into this. 6 months for someone, anyone, who follows and supports Nesper to say something and they didn't. This video has 28,000 views. Now I have to admit here, I missed this video Tony put up 6 months ago. I've been insanely busy with work, and despite what some of my trolls think, I don't keep constant tabs on Nesper and Tony and Dan. but a listener of mine showed it to me after their podcast episode with Joe and after I'd begun digging. Also, this is important. It only took me minutes to find and confirm this man's identity. I didn't even have his real name to start. So, that further concerns me. If I hadn't gone public, Joe would still be receiving all this praise for his story and no one questioning it, or him. This is insanely irresponsible paranormal investigation. What happened to making sure the story is true first? That would have led straight to this man's criminal history. I can't stress that enough. So, I have another little reaction video to put here. I wanted to show Tony's video from 6 months ago here and point out some things. So I'll start that now, and I'll be back at the end with the wrap-up. And as of recording this, Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, this video is still on Nesper's YouTube channel. Okay, now I'm going to play this video and I'm going to react to it. It's not near as long as the last one, so that's a plus. But I'm going ahead and going to start it now. And I will break down this lovely video from Tony Spira on the Seekers of the Supernatural YouTube channel.
Hi guys, Tony Spira here again, your moderator for Seekers of the Supernatural, the official Ed and Lorraine Warren channel. I know it's been a long time since I've been on here. A lot of stuff's been going down, a lot of stuff in the world, which is not making me too happy. But other than all that stuff that's going on in the world today, first of all, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm healthy, that I know of. Judy's healthy. We're having a Friendsgiving party on Saturday for the team members at Lorraine's house, which is, of course, our house now. But I have some important stuff to talk about today. Actually, it's probably the most astounding case that I've been involved in a long, long time. And you know what it is? It's an old case that Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated back in 1974. And it's the case at 966 Lindley Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut. That case, ladies and gentlemen, brought thousands of onlookers to that little shotgun-style house in Bridgeport near St. Vincent's Hospital. The things that happened in that home when Ed and Lorraine investigated were, back then even, amazing, astounding, almost unbelievable, some of the stuff that happened. Poltergeist activity that is...
I want to remind everybody that the Warrens didn't exactly investigate this case because they were fired.
Rarely seen. Now it's the Gooden family, Marcy Gooden, the little girl, Laura Gooden, and Jerry Gooden, who lived there at the house. I mean small. It's a small, small space. Poltergeist activity such as TV sets moving away from the walls and falling over, crucifixes falling off the walls, pictures falling off the walls, chairs stacking on top of one another, items being missing then come back later, or being missing and never come back, voices, red eyes, all kinds of phenomena that scared and terrified the people there. Silverware and dishes flying throughout the kitchen and falling and breaking. Now, that case, Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated back in 1974. They did bring a Catholic priest with them. His name was Father Bill. He witnessed the phenomena. And this is a case where people had claimed that a cat walking across the carpeting was singing jingle bells. And people had heard that.
So I read the book, and from what I remember, I'm going to double check, and I'll cover this when I cover the facts of Lindley Street. But they didn't say the cat was singing. They said the cat said the words jingle bells. I think that's even in an article online I read. But yeah, so Tony has a bad habit of slightly altering details and changing things up a bit. And in my opinion, that's not good paranormal investigative research. That's not how you investigate. You need to keep all the facts in line and straight so they can't be questioned. So that really bothers me that he does that so much.
Witnessed it themselves, including Ed and Lorraine Warren and the priest and others. Now, there were police officers there inside the house investigating, outside the house for crowd control. And at one point, there was about 9 police officers from Bridgeport inside the home, and they all knelt in front of the priest at one point and asked him for a holy blessing before they went home from their shifts. That's how amazing and how scared normal people were, because the police knew they couldn't handle this with a gun, with a nightstick. They couldn't wrestle it to the ground. Whatever was there was supernatural. And Ed would call it preternatural, something negative. We believed they were devils. Well, they believed it back then, they were devils. But I got a call, I should say an email first, from a gentleman that stayed at that house many, many days as a young boy. He was being babysat by Gerald Gooden and Laura Gooden. And he would be in that house for days on end sometimes, because his mother was an unfit mom, and she would drop him off and not pick him up for days on end. The case that I'll give you a slight view of what's happening is truly astounding, actually. It's a case that is almost beyond believability, but I believe it to be 100% genuine. This case is going to blow.
So Tony says he believes this case to be 100% genuine. Again, did he not look into this man's story for facts, for confirmation, to see if any of the details were lining up, or to even just see if he was telling the truth? Like, it's a paranormal investigator's job, I cannot stress this enough, to find the truth. So if this man comes to Tony with this story and Tony immediately believes it, doesn't question it, doesn't look into it, come on.
Your mind, it'll blow people's minds. In fact, I have so much information that I got from this man. He's now 57 years old, who lived in that home when he was 7 years old, 50 years ago. And he used to stay with Marcy. And he told me some of the things that happened to Marcy, with Marcy, in the house, and that happened to him, which were extraordinary. And I mean mind-blowing things that would happen. He has been dealing with these devils and demons, and that's what they are, for over 50 years. He's fought these things his whole life. He tried to have a normal life. At one point, he was a Elvis impersonator and did very well, but he always tumbled down somehow. Something always drew him down, and he knows what it was, and I know what it was the demons. Demons talked to him. They made his life miserable for 50 years. And he called me and sent me an email. I called him up. We spoke many times on the phone, and he told me some incredible stories. He told me why the cat sang Jingle Bells. I'm not going to explain it here, but he told me why, and it's very believable why.
That's also another really common trait with Tony. He will say, I know something, or I have proof, or whatever, and then he'll say, but I'm not going to say it here, or I'm not going to show it here. And that's so aggravating. If you have the proof, and you are a paranormal enthusiast, an investigator, or anything of the like, sharing the proof is the best part. Like, showing what you discovered and having evidence to back it, that's the best part. Why does Tony leave all his listeners and followers hanging like that? And why do they let him? Why do they not demand the proof that he has? Why do they not demand the rest of the story instead of, oh, I can't tell you that right now? That really bothers me.
That happened now. I'm actually thinking of writing a book on this subject, on this case again, because it took 50.
Okay, So he just said, I'm actually thinking about writing a book on this subject, on this case, again. Tony didn't write this book. The Warrens didn't write this book. William J. Hall wrote the book about Lindley Street. Tony had nothing to do with it. The Warrens had nothing to do with it. They are mentioned in it because they were present. This drives me crazy. He's going to write another book or tell the story again, but from Joe's perspective. That's the thing. That's how the Conjuring movie became a thing. It got told from the Warrens' perspective instead of the parents'. That's why it took 14 years to get it into the movies. So,
years later to resolve this man's torment. And when I say he was tormented, I mean he was tormented. The things that happened to him, and I'm not going to say his name yet, is mind-boggling. He's had...
So here he says he's not going to say the name yet of this man. Part of me wonders if he was holding back on the name because he knew about Joe. I hate to make that accusation. I hate to think that someone would know something like that and still try to push someone with that background into the public eye. I don't want to believe that he knew, but it really bothers me, a lot of the details in this situation, and makes me wonder.
Hundreds of devils and demons come after him. One day in the house in 1974, he said he awakened from his bed. It was like a portable roll-out bed that Laura and Jerry had made for him and bought for him. He woke up and it was pitch black, and all he saw all around him in a 360-degree environment were these red eyes. And he told me, he said, Tone, there were hundreds of them looking at me. He would wake up in a different room with the roll-out bed in a different room. He'd be in one room, and then he'd wake up and he'd be in a kitchen. And even Jerry, the man of the house, would take measurements of the doorway and say, there's no way this bed could get through that kitchen door, but yet it was there. Voices speaking to Jerry, things disappearing in front of his eyes and reappearing. Sounds, just crazy things that would happen, and the cat was a heavily involved part of this. That would give him messages, verbal messages. And you wonder, how can a cat ever talk or vocalize? Remember, you're dealing with devils and demons, ladies and gentlemen. You're not dealing with this realm. A devil or a demon can manipulate things. It can make things appear that they're happening one way or another. Also, they can manipulate the larynx of an animal, of a person. And that voice, they were using that larynx of the cat, the voice box of the cat, to vocalize. And Ed's explained to me, Ed Warren, that was called a materialized larynx. And Ed heard it. This man now who's 57 years old, he heard it. All the family heard it, that this cat would talk. So this case will boggle your mind, and I am seriously considering writing a book on it because it took 50 years.
Again, he's seriously considering writing a book. He says that so many times in this. Like, he really wanted this story. He really wanted to write this book.
Years for me to resolve this, but not just me. So this case will boggle your mind, and I am seriously considering writing a book on it because it took 50 years for me to resolve this, but not just me. He is free at this time. Recently, within the last 2 weeks, he has been freed.
Tony says he's been working on this for 50 years. It took him 50 years, he said, his words. But he also said Joe just reached out to him. When did Joe reach out to him? How long has he known Joe? How long has Tony had to look into Joe?
Of the last two demons that attacked him. Now remember, it's not just me that helped. There was an archbishop who's working on our team, that sent materials to this man and had him do various rituals, religious rituals, to try to cleanse himself. I, in fact, also helped, but the man himself was heavily involved in his own healing process and expunging of these devils, these animals.
So since when can you exorcise yourself? If people really suffer from demonic possession, I do believe the whole thing is to get them an exorcism by the church so they can be free. If they could do it themselves, don't you think they would? I don't know. This bothers me so much, so much.
Animalistic devils. He said they looked so creepy and they were so tormenting to him as a young man. He said in 50 years he rarely slept a full night, and I believe it. The things that happened to him.
There he goes again, saying, I believe him. I understand wanting to believe someone when they're telling you a traumatic story, especially one that involves abuse, because you don't want to be that person that assumes they're lying about something so bad. But, Tony, you're an investigator. You're a former policeman. Why did you not look into this man?
As a child, were bad enough. The child abuse had happened to him, which he has since dealt with. He had to deal with this for 50 years in his mind, but he's cleansing himself of this. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that devils and demons are not on the same timeline as we are. 50 years of tormenting someone, it's a long time for us, but it's not a long time for a devil or demon. There is no time and space as we know it in the demonic realm. At one point, this man sent me a video that he was hearing banging sounds in his little mobile home. He lives down in Florida. These pounding and rapping sounds.
Tony knew he lived in Florida. If he'd looked into him just a little bit, he would have found the records. Again, I found them so quickly, and I didn't even have his name, like his actual real name. I imagine Tony does, because he says in the other video that we're going to use, that some names may be changed for the privacy of those involved, and Joe's name was the only name changed. So, Tony.
Sounds continuous, and it fed this man up so bad. He was so fed up, he yelled out, "What do you want? You haven't gotten to me. It's been 50 years. Leave me alone. What do you want?" This is recently. And the voices said, "Lindley Street." Lindley, and they said his name, Lindley Street, and I heard it. And these were demonic voices. These were not voices that were made up or manufactured. These were demonic voices. I had a...
Just for the record, I don't laugh at people when they're telling me a story about an experience they had, but I cannot help but laugh at Tony because I have more information than he thinks the listeners have, so I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Sound expert listened to them, and he said these voices were real. This wasn't a manipulated voice. 50 years later, they were still after him. As a last-ditch attempt, they tried to make this man actually murder somebody. Now, if you remember the Devil in Connecticut case.
So if Tony knows that demons actually tried to make this man murder somebody, how does he not know about the rest of his criminal history? Is the murdering thing made up? Did that really happen? Is that another charge? I mean, the man has charges. He assaulted police officers. So it's not out of the question for him to be violent like that. So it really bothers me that we're going to blame demons this time because we can't be held responsible for these things.
Where Arnie Johnson was influenced by a demonic presence and he stabbed Alan Bono. This was The Devil Made Me Do It, the Conjuring 3 movie, and there's a book, The Devil in Connecticut.
Another criminal that Nesper worked with.
By Gerald Brittle, as told through the eyes of Ed and Lorraine Warren and the family, the Johnsons and the Glatzels. Remember that these things are insidious, that they know how to attack, they know how to wear you down. And they tried to wear this man down to the point of killing someone so they could win this battle. But this man's a very strong-willed person. He's smart, he's religious now, he prayed to the Lord, he did everything that we had told him to do as far as getting rid of these things. And one by one they started to fall away. But they left him a message too. The last two demonic entities that were attached to him said, "We're leaving now, but we'll be back." And when they say something like that, ladies and gentlemen, they mean it. They'll be back. But we're not going to let them in the door. Through specific rituals and prayers and things that I need him to do, they'll never get back into him or influence him in that way again. The easiest way to stay clear of demonic activity, ladies and gentlemen, is to not do bad things. Now, this young man didn't do bad things. He was a sole victim. He was a victim of his environment.
This man didn't do bad things. He was a sole victim. I wonder how his victims feel about that.
By things that happened to him as a young man, a very young child, I should say. I mean, child abuse to the max. Child abuse that I'm not going to describe here, that is disgusting. So disgusting that I don't know how he endured it, but he did somehow. It showed he had a strong will. Tried to forget it, tried to bury it, but it's always been in his mind, even to this day. But now he has forgiven these abusers. That's part of the healing process. Once you start to forgive and get rid of the hate, the demons don't like that. The demons want you to hate. They don't want you to love. They want you to hate. They don't want you to have a good life. They want you to have a miserable life. That's what they want. But this man, who at some point I will disclose his name, I am going to write a book. I have hours of interviews with.
So it started with, I want to write a book. I think I should write a book now. I'm going to write a book. This was his intention from the beginning. He just wanted to make money off this man's story. Didn't care whether or not it was real or true, or even about the man. So, this is a lot.
Him. And I, as a former police officer and an investigator for, almost going on 40 years now, I know when someone is telling me the truth. I know when someone is embellishing. I know when someone is making up a story. He is doing
all the things I want to scream right now.
none of those. He is telling me the truth. He's not lying. So the things he is saying to me, I believe 100%. He has said to me that the last two demons are gone, and I believe him. But now our job is to keep them gone, keep them away. There's also a secret weapon that this man has acquired, and I can't get into details now. It's something that is a very powerful weapon that will help him to never have to deal with these entities again. He also gave this man another message about the world. You know what that message was? The message was that we're winning. Not us, but the devils. They said we're winning. They said we have about 75% of our job is done, and we're working on the next 25%. Ladies and gentlemen, we're the 25%. You who are listening to this man, my team, and others are the 25% that they haven't gotten to and are fighting back with all we have. And we do have an ace up our
Fighting back with all we have. Yet you can't check a person's story, history, and background.
Remember, that ace up our sleeve is called God. Jesus Christ, our Savior. The things that are happening in the world today are all influenced, in my opinion, by demonic activity, by the demons. And he even confirmed that they told him that they even gave us technology. And he said, why did you do that? Why would you give us technology? And they said, to help you destroy yourselves quicker. And I believe that too. That technology is a double-edged sword. It's a two-tongued dragon. In other words, there's good, but it can be used in a very, very nasty and evil way. And I think that's what's happening today. The nastiness is overtaking the positivity. The negativity is way out of control. So, this case on Lindley Street is not over, has not been over for 50 years. We believe it's coming to an end now, but we want to make sure that we put the lid on the jar and keep that jar sealed. The man has been tormented. I want you to pray for him. Just pray for the man that lived on Lindley Street in 1974 as a young child, who was 7 years old at the time. Pray for his freedom, for his happiness, that he will once again be free, totally 100% from these demonic attachments and influences. He has had nightmares for 50 years. He's had problems for 50 years. They tried to get him through.
He just said he has had nightmares for 50 years. Remember in the other video when Tony tried to ask the question, did you have any nightmares? And Joe had a hard time answering directly, and instead of saying anything about nightmares, he just basically said, yeah, it was a nightmare. Living there was a nightmare. That wasn't the question, and I'm pretty sure Tony was leading him, like I said.
Alcohol and drugs, For 20 years, or for a lot of years, they worked on him with the drugs and the alcohol. Somehow, some way, maybe through prayer, through diligence, he beat it. He stopped the drinking, stopped the drugs, stopped anything that was bad. And it's been over 20 years since he's had a drink or any illegal drugs. And I applaud him for that, because it's not an easy thing to quit. It really isn't. So I want you to pray, ladies and gentlemen. Now, a good prayer to pray, of course, is the Our Father, the Lord's Prayer, the 23rd Psalm, and the St. Michael the Archangel prayer. The St. Michael the Archangel prayer starts with, St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle.
Okay, listeners, most of you know that I am not a religious person. I believe in energy and good vibes and staying positive. But if you want to pray for anyone, please pray for those victims.
Be our protection against the snares and wickedness of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, through the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who roam the earth, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. That is the St. Michael the Archangel prayer. St. Michael is a very powerful angel who helps us in battle. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know I've spoken a lot, and I hope I haven't taken up too much of your time. Life can be beautiful. Life can be fantastic. But to make it that way, you have to think that way. You have to think beauty. You have to think love. You have to discard this hatred, this jealousy, this envy that comes in. You know where that comes in from? It doesn't come in from God. It comes in from demonic activities or demonic influences trying to get to us, get to people who are weak-willed or are away from God. God is our protector. God is our Father. God wants the best for us, the best. But remember, He also gave us free will. If you don't want to follow His teachings, His way of life, He'll let you do what you want to do. You want to be bad, He'll let you. But you know in your heart of hearts that that's not the path to take. The path to take is a path of righteousness and love. Love thy neighbor as thyself. We really need as a society to stop the nonsense. Stop the nonsense when it comes to being cruel to other people because you can. Of course you can, but you can also be loving. You know, these keyboard warriors on social media, to me, they're cowards and they're disgusting people.
I'm pretty sure he's referring to all the drama that was happening around this time, because this video was put up 6 months ago, and there was a ton of paranormal drama happening. There was so many posts, so many people slinging mud from both sides, from the people who support Nesper and for the people who are against Nesper. It was wild, but we are only trying to expose the lies and push the truth forward. So how does that make us bad? How does that make us keyboard warriors to be fighting for the truth and trying to find it and expose it?
To say the things they say to other people is ridiculous, and it's disgusting, and it's not godlike. You want to see God when you pass from this realm? You have to act godlike. You have to do godlike things. You have to follow God's path. Stay away from demonic influences. Stay away from evil things. Anything that's disgusting, just remember this. Anything that feels immoral to you, feels disgusting, feels wrong, it is. And that's what the devil wants you to continue to do.
So is Tony saying he didn't feel wrong about Joe at all? No gut feelings about Joe? I had a gut feeling about Joe the second I saw his face, and I didn't even know yet what he'd done. I felt all kinds of things that made me say, red flag, red flag. So, Tony.
Anything that feels good, feels right, like charity, generosity, love, kindness, that's godlike, and God wants you to do it. I've met a lot of people in my life, a lot of good people. Yes, I've met some bad individuals, but rather than hate these bad individuals or despise them, I choose to love them and send out love to them.
That's a flat out lie, because during all of this stuff that was going on, Tony was putting up memes that were very threatening, very violent. He had a meme up about a man sitting on a bench and another man pointing a gun at his head, and it said something about, I don't remember, loyalty. He posted a lot about loyalty, but he's not practicing what he's preaching, and it's very, very clear if you were to see his Facebook page. Tony's full of crap, okay? He's full of crap.
Lorraine Warren taught me that years ago. Love is powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Love is it. We are here meant to love others, not to hurt others, not to assault others, not to kill others, not to envy others, and not to be bad to others. We're here to be good. So, saying all that, look forward to more on this man. Look forward to a book that I'll be writing with him, which is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal experience that you're going to go through on this journey. But pray for him too, and pray for everybody. Pray for anybody who is under assault, anybody who is being harmed unnecessarily. You know,
why did he feel the need to point that out? Pray for anyone who's being assaulted or harmed unnecessarily? I want to believe that Tony did not know about this man's history before helping him. I want to believe that he only knew about maybe some violent acts, some drug use, and some alcohol, but
there's a lot of opinions on war. And they say war is hell. It is. The devil loves war, by the way. The devil loves war. But remember, sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. You know, if somebody tries to beat up your mother in front of you, are you going to let them do it? Are you going to stand there and let them beat your mother to death? No. You're going to try to defend her, and you might have to use violence to do that.
But you're going to put people who have committed very violent acts. Arnie Cheyenne Johnson killed somebody and blamed it on demons. And of course, Joe. We're going to put them on pedestals and parade them around and write them books and make them paranormal famous?
That, to me, is not bad. That is being righteous. That is being just. That is giving somebody what they deserve back. You can't just let somebody kill you. So, having said all that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish everybody the best. And I also say this, get right with God. Things are about to take a turn, I think. It's just my opinion. A turn that's not good, because the devil is on full assault mode. The devil's on full attack mode, and we're sitting back, on our laurels like nothing's going to happen. When I say something might happen, in my mind, it's going to happen, and it's not going to be fun. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sign off and say I love you all. Keep watching my channel, please. Pray for this man. Pray for your relatives. Pray for everyone who's in need. So, for that, I'm Tony Sparrow. Talk to you later.
In my opinion, Tony needs to take his own advice and get right with God and stop the lies. Stop parading around falsehoods. Stop perpetuating misinformation. Stop trying to make money off of things that are not true while claiming they're true and not ever doing the research. You said yourself, Tony, you're a former policeman. You're a paranormal investigator. Do your job. All right, guys, it's time for the wrap-up. So there you have it. Tony Spear has known and been, quote, helping Joe for at least 6 months. He had half a year to check into this man's story and find out his history. And he didn't even try. Clearly. So now, as you're watching or listening to this, they are doing their live podcast episode on their YouTube channel. They did not announce whether or not they would discuss the situation with Joe, why they're no longer doing a part 2. But I'd like to make a prediction here, if I might be so bold. If Nesper decides to address this, and not just attempt to sweep it under the rug, I think something like this, or something similar to this, will happen. They will deny any knowledge of Joe's history, and even possibly claim they're the victims here, how Joe scammed them, and how it could happen to anyone, and that they're innocent in this whole mess. That is if they address it. I'm curious to see. So I'll be watching, and I will most definitely report back. Thank you all so much for joining me the last few episodes. It's been a little hectic with it not being my normal episode format of a story and some fact-checking. Or maybe it has. Thanks again to everyone who reached out, who helped, who pointed things out I missed, and who have been supporting this whole way. You guys are amazing. Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time. Oh yeah, I have a little extras again for you guys. So, one of my listeners pointed out a coincidence. So Tony was calling this man Joe King, and he was calling himself Little Joey. And quite a few people made jokes about how it literally spells the word joking, because it was spelled J-O instead of J-O-E. But, even funnier than that, one of the actresses in the first Conjuring movie is named Joey King. Isn't that crazy? Shout out to that listener. I really enjoyed that little coincidence. I wanted to say one final thing here about this absurd amount of time Joe and his criminal history went under the radar. I mentioned it was crazy that in 6 months, no one tried to find his true identity. Then, after I exposed him, some of Nesper's listeners actually believed their announcement that one of their listeners, not mine, found Joe's identity. Again, it took me minutes to find Joe, even without his real name. But it took days for them to remove their video and acknowledge what I presented. It really freaks me out that these guys have so much pull with their listeners that they actually believe anything that comes from them. But this further proves it couldn't have been one of their listeners, because for 6 months, and then days after their official episode, they continued to perpetuate Joe's story. And there's a second announcement video. It's only 1 minute and 38 seconds long, I believe, but he says Joe's name. So even if he didn't say it in the one 6 months ago, there is an announcement with Joe's name, and still no one looked into his story. The math just doesn't math, guys. Just saying. See you all next time with more facts and truth-telling. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, and/or follow and subscribe. And maybe rate and review if you feel so inclined. Big thank you to all of you fans, new and old. Don't forget to follow the social medias for photo shares and clips of the episodes and random announcements and updates. Just search Truth or Demons Podcast on any platform. Next up, I will cover the Lindley Street haunting and the facts, and finally, the Devil in the Courtroom episode. Thanks for watching and/or listening.